County Coroner, Dr. this evening to speak to you about a year-long investigation that has been ongoing regarding former Lake County Coroner, Dr. Thomas Rudd, and 5 counts of perjury that he was indicted on today. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Mr. Town to begin with.
Thank you. My name is Brian Town. I'm from the Illinois Appellate Prosecutor's Office. Our office is brought in when there are situations involving counties that need our assistance, or if there is a conflict or the appearance of a conflict in a case. Our office was appointed approximately a little over a year ago, and during the course of the assistance to the Lake County Sheriff's Office, we today brought to the Lake County Grand Jury 5 counts of indictment against Thomas A. Rudd. Each of the 5 counts is a count of perjury. Perjury is a Class 3 felony. It carries a possible penalty range of 2 to 5 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections. It's also a probationable offense. We brought those matters to the grand jury. The grand jury returned all 5 counts of indictment. At this point in time, I will turn the matters over to the undersheriff.
Good evening. So in the way of backdrop to this, in December of 2015, a number of Rudd's petitions, nominating petitions, had been challenged, and before the hearings could begin, Rudd withdrew from the primary election. As a result of him withdrawing, citizens came forward to us to let us know that there were issues with these nominating petitions and wanted us to investigate. So we got the petitions and started an investigation in January of 2016. This investigation has been ongoing since that time. We have reviewed thousands and thousands of documents, including all of the nominating petitions. We've interviewed a number of people, and as a result of those interviews, it's caused this investigation to expand. We're at a point where, as it was pointed out, that this is an ongoing investigation and that there are potentially more charges that will be coming and that it will involve more people. So it was felt at this time that with what we had with the select nominating petitions that we had started with, that we would move forward with these indictments and keep these 2 parts of the investigation separate.
After coroner embarrassed police department with facts, they had him arrested. The former coroner of Round Lake Park, Illinois, has been arrested and charged with multiple felonies. According to the Chicago Tribune, former Lake County Coroner Thomas Rudd has been indicted on 5 felony counts of perjury, with authorities alleging he falsely claimed to have witness signatures on his election nominating petitions. The story might seem just if weren't for Round Lake Park, Illinois Police Department's sordid past and current track record of alleged corruption, cover-ups, and scandals. In 2016, 10 of the 13 police officers that comprise the small police department filed a civil rights lawsuit against the village and the department after learning the body cameras worn by officers at all times were allegedly capturing the officers in compromising situations, which included a female officer using the bathroom, and others in intimate situations. The lawsuit names the village, and the sheriff and his second-in-command as defendants. The only 2 people with full administrative access to the video review system were Wingo and Deputy Chief Daniel Birch, who therefore knew about the unauthorized video, asserts the suit, which names both as defendants. Birch had also conducted the department's initial 2-hour training session on the cameras, showing officers how to start and stop the devices, advising officers to record almost all calls, both routine and emergency, including traffic stops and foot pursuits, writes the Tribune. One by one, as former Round Lake Park police officer Dominic Izzo told the Free Thought Project, Wingo then began to harass, intimidate, and threaten the officers whose names were listed as plaintiffs in the case. Chief Wingo supposedly made life so difficult for them that many left the PD and moved to other precincts. But it was the 48 Hours episode which chronicled Melissa Kolasinski's fight to prove her innocence which sent Izzo over the blue line of silence, transforming him into a whistleblower, an action which cost him his career and has now led to the former coroner's arrest. Kolasinski, a daycare worker in her 20s, was charged with murder in the January 14, 2009 death of baby Ben Kingen, who passed away while in her care. The state's case against Kolasinski argued Kingen was a healthy little boy when she violently slammed him on the ground, causing a skull fracture, which led to his death. After all, Kolasinski confessed on video, even reenacting how she'd killed the little boy. The trial was equally as convincing, and the jury returned a guilty verdict. In 2011, the young woman was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Kolasinski denied any involvement in Kingen's death, saying, "I was just ready to get away from these men." Those men to which she referred were the investigators in her case, one of whom was Filenko himself. She claims she was intimidated into falsely confessing to the infant's death. She had claimed innocence for more than 6 hours, eventually giving in and saying whatever in order to get out of the interrogation. No sooner had she been placed into the squad car than she recanted her confession. Experts in researching false confessions agreed, saying Kolasinski was coached by Filenko in what to say, and how to describe her actions, leading her into falsely claiming she was guilty. Read more. Western spy agencies build cyber magicians to manipulate online discourse. The experts also said the daycare worker's immediate willingness to take a polygraph test and have the other children at the daycare interviewed by child behavioral experts was further evidence she did not commit the crime she was accused of committing. From the 9 hours of videotaped interrogations, one could easily conclude the interrogators verbally berated Kolasinski, intimidated her with profane words, and overlooked the hours of denials of any involvement in Kingen's death. That feeling, of being in the presence of one of Filenko's verbal assaults, was a feeling Izzo knew all too well, and had experienced on numerous occasions. Izzo knew he would lose his job when he came out as a whistleblower against his boss, Round Lake Park, Illinois Police Chief George Filenko. Izzo, the former police union president, and former Officer of the Year for the small police department of 12 officers, had once been inside the chief's inner circle, serving as his right-hand man. But that all changed when Izzo became more aware of Melissa Kolasinski's case. After the 48 Hours episode aired, which made no mention of Chief Filenko, Izzo released all he'd been holding inside. The Free Thought Project first broke the story of Izzo's public denouncement of his former police chief, boss, and friend. The now former Round Lake Park police officer posted his lack of confidence in Filenko on Facebook. He accused the chief of knowingly allowing the body cameras worn by all of Round Lake Park's police officers to film the officers in compromising and intimate situations. He detailed what he considered was Filenko's vengeance against the police officers who filed a lawsuit against the chief, the department, and the county. According to Izzo, those who sued the city found themselves the target of the police chief's recompense in the form of demotions, threats, and intimidation. And then Izzo turned his attention to Kolasinski's case, saying his chief was the real reason Kolasinski was in prison. He said it wasn't her guilt which put her there, but the chief's incompetence, and that the man should never have been allowed to interrogate her in the first place. Put simply, Izzo believed Kolasinski was innocent and the police were doing all they could to keep her in prison. Not surprisingly, Izzo was fired a day after our story broke. But the pressure is now on the village to justify its treatment of the young, and some have said, innocent daycare worker. There are others, also, who agree Melissa Kolasinski was innocent. Normally a pathologist is not 100%, but I feel she's 100% innocent, former Lake County Coroner Thomas Rudd told 48 Hours. In 2012, Kolasinski's father persuaded Rudd to review the autopsy evidence that had been used to convict his daughter. Rudd had recently been elected to the position of Lake County Coroner, and he said, "I was stunned. I could not believe what I was seeing, because it was the exact opposite of what was written. Rudd then got a second opinion from Dr. Nancy Jones, also a pathologist who's conducted 10,000 autopsies. Hugely significant, and how they let that go is beyond me, Rudd said upon reviewing the 4-inch by 4-inch old injury he and Jones said had been healing for nearly 4 months prior to his death. The old injury was massive, Rudd said. Adding to the evidence Kolasinski didn't kill Kingen was the fact Kingen's head circumference had grown from the 50th percentile to the 90th percentile within just a few short months. Read more. Cop runs stop sign and kills 57-year-old woman, not responding to a call. Dr. Rudd then called the original pathologist Dr. Choi and asked the former pathologist to confirm his and Jones' findings. He did. Dr. Choi admitted he was wrong in a sworn affidavit. Prosecutors Matthew DeMartini and Stephen Scheller refused to concede a miscarriage of justice had occurred. They too were joined by Lake County State's Attorney Michael Nerheim. The trio would eventually be victorious in court for a second time, keeping Kolasinski in prison. How do you fracture a skull without causing tissue damage to the skin above it? It's not possible, Rudd stated, acknowledging Kingen, at the time of his death, had no signs of a contusion in the area where the state's attorneys say Kolasinski caused injury leading to his death. And the size of the infant's head was noticeably abnormal. His head looked like the old-fashioned light bulb, which he said was not the shape of a normal child's brain. The boy's brain was abnormally large at the time of his death, which was something Kolasinski did not cause. Newly discovered X-rays of Kingen's brain also confirmed what other experts concluded was an abnormally shaped head, which is an obvious indication of brain swelling, a condition which could have easily caused his death. In 2015, after gathering all the facts, Dr. Rudd then reclassified Kingen's death from a homicide to undetermined. Armed with the coroner's corrected cause of death, Kolasinski's attorney Kathleen Zeliner in June 2015, filed a petition to have Kolasinski's conviction thrown out, based on all of the evidence which has emerged since her conviction. It took a year of fighting, but finally, in June of 2016, Lake County Judge Danielshans agreed to give Kolasinski and her lawyer a hearing in court. By August, she was back in court to determine whether or not Kolasinski should be freed. Zeliner even testified that at the original trial, the prosecution gave Kolasinski's defense attorneys X-rays of Kingen's brain which had been photoshopped to prevent the defense attorneys from discovering there were no skull fractures as the prosecution contended. Judge Shans refused to overturn Kolasinski's conviction, even with the overwhelming evidence of 2 new medical doctors, the statement from the former pathologist admitting he'd made a mistake, the fact the child's brain was abnormally large, the knowledge there was no contusion on the child's head, and the contention the defense never received clear X-rays. I totally expected it. We're in Lake County. They never admit they're wrong, Zeliner said. After all the evidence was presented, after one police officer lost his job for blowing the whistle, and after Kolasinski's hopes for freedoms were dashed, what did Dr. Rudd receive in exchange for attempting to free someone he believed was 100% innocent? He has been arrested, and charged with perjury. ISO says the charges against Rudd are trumped up. Hold on.